What's up, guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2002 Chevy Impala LS. Up front is a 3.8-liter V6, and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be making this video for two reasons. First of all, this is my favorite generation of Impala, sparing, of course, the classic ones. I've driven a 1970 and a 1958. I love those, but in terms of modern Impala, this is my favorite. I grew up around these. My grandpa had a blue one, and yet I haven't been able to find one to review until today. The second reason is the fact that this particular Impala has over 300,000 miles. And so people love saying GM doesn't build good cars, but here it is over 300,000 miles later, still handling the road with a few lights on, but still doing it nevertheless. If you would like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. But let's get back to that 3.8-liter V6 under the hood. Well, if you're familiar with GM at the time, this is one of the best engines that they ever made, ever. It's a 3800 series, and for whatever reason, they're incredibly reliable. They made them throughout the 90s and into the 2000s. They discontinued it around 2008, I believe, and they had 3 series within it, but pretty much any of the series, you're gonna have good reliability and pretty decent power, of course, gaining power with each series. This is a Series 2, so it is pretty decent, and I like it a lot. Like I said, paired to it is a 4-speed automatic transmission, and I don't want to waste any more breath talking about it. Last but not least, the Impala is front-wheel drive, as most vehicles on this platform were. This is the W-body platform, and that's shared with like the Grand Prix, LaCrosse, vehicles like that. So how does it feel to drive an '02 Impala? Well, it has a very comfortable ride for the most part. This has a very, very worn strut on it after 300,000 miles, but it only acts up every once in a while. The rest of the ride is actually pretty comfy. Visibility out the front is pretty good. Now, it's not gonna light up the tires and do 11s all the way down your neighborhood, but that's okay. This was a more comfy, cozy cruiser, and definitely a symbol of pre-recession GM, where Chevy still had good, comfortable cars and didn't charge you an arm and a leg in their Cadillac and Buick divisions just for simple luxuries. So, very, very nice to see that. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 3 gauges. Off to the left is my fuel and coolant temperature, in the center is my speedometer, and off to the right is my tachometer. As you'll notice, it has several warning lights on, and it wouldn't be a 2000s GM product if it didn't. On the steering wheel, on the left, we have our Seek Type, and Pre-Seek buttons, as well as cruise and coast controls, and off to the right, we have our mode, volume, and mute. Off to the left, we have our traction control off button, climate vent, headlight switches, which you actually still pull out of the dash, which is very nice, and fog, very reminiscent of older style vehicles there with the headlight switch. And moving out of the door, we have the lock and unlock, power mirrors, and power windows. Moving into the center, we do get our radio. Now, this is the more basic radio that you could get back in 2002. However, the upgraded one just came with a cassette player, which I guess is an upgrade, but in hindsight, really wasn't. And then we have our climate controls. Dual zone climate here in 2002. This is what I'm talking about, with nice features in a Chevy as opposed to a Buick or even at the time Oldsmobile or Cadillac products. And then we do get a giant cubby, a smaller cubby that holds the ashtray and cigarette lighter, and the shifter. If you're familiar with GM vehicles, you'll be very familiar with this shifter. It's iconic. It's in every single Chevy GM product of the era, and it's a welcome friend at this point. Then we do have cup holders, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test. And yes, it does have a removable liner, so we will remove it. However, it still fails the big friggin' bottle test just slightly. It doesn't hold it in. I really wish it did, but at the end of the day, beggars can't be choosers, and big friggin' bottles don't have to fit. Then we do get a center console and the seats. The seats are leather. The LS was a higher trim than the base, of course, and so it did get leather, got a couple other nice accents, and I really, really enjoy it. Again, speaking towards Chevy pre-recession, they knew how to do comfy seats, and they did them very, very well. You would be hard-pressed to find a Chevy product of this era that didn't have comfortable seats. After 2008, pretty much nothing had comfortable seats, but these are really, really good, and I enjoy them quite a bit. The seats are also heated, which is a wonderful feature for 2002. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats. So let's go do a back seat review. All right, so we're in the back of the 2002 Chevy Impala LS, and a couple of things to note. First of all, knee room, fantastic. Headroom, fantastic. I fit back here very, very well. I do have a push-out ashtray and 12-volt outlet. I do have a center console, which is fantastic. Little lights. Other than that, nothing too crazy, but plenty of space. That is what I love to see about these GMs, is I fit back here very, very well. Let's hop into the trunk. We'll take a very quick look at the trunk and cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, around the back, we do have a trunk popper on the key fob, and as you saw, it flashed the reverse lights, which is kind of funny. Once we are back here, tons and tons of space. GM was very, very good about their space in their trunks pre-recession, and that is no different in this Impala, and I absolutely love it. Here it is, giant rear trunk, just as I expected and just as I love. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and this is 100% macaroni styling. Macaroni styling is a term I coined, meaning kind of blobby, kind of round, not very angular, not very sculpted, but it has that warm nostalgia associated with it, like a nice warm bowl of mac and cheese. That's what I grew up eating, making myself after school, and so it gives me that warm fuzzy feeling, and so does this. I had little die-cast versions of this. Like I said, my grandpa had one, very, very little. I went to go see Shrek 3 in one of these. That's a true story, as a child. And so I just have that warm nostalgia with it, and every time I look at these, I feel that again. However, with all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving this Chevy Impala from 2002? Well, first of all, I was so excited to drive this. I've been trying to track down one of these forever and ever and ever, and to be behind the wheel and finally get one filmed on the channel feels very good. However, I do want to note the mileage of this vehicle, 303,000 miles. And it hasn't needed any major maintenance. Now, there's two ways to look at that. First of all, you might say, wow, that's impressive. And it is. You'd be correct. But the other way to look at it is you might say, Zach, there's warning lights out the wazoo. What do you mean it hasn't needed anything? Yeah, the wheel speed sensors are going bad, so that throws an ABS light. Traction control module died, so that throws that light. The oil pressure and coolant temperature sensors have gone bad, so that throws the check engine light. It's hurting, I'm not gonna deny that, but it keeps on going. Yeah, it doesn't feel good. Yeah, it's got a couple issues, but it keeps going. Keeps moving forward, keeps doing its thing. This car is very much me last week. A week before filming this, I went on a 5-mile hike with almost 2,000 feet of elevation gain. Now, it was a very beautiful hike, and I saw some very cool things. Grinnell Glacier out in Glacier National Park, wonderful. Saw these bighorn sheep that were charging at us, very neat. But you can ask my girlfriend, the entire way up and down the mountain, I complained. I hated it. My feet hurt. My legs hurt. I was cold. I was warm. I was hungry. I was thirsty. I was tired. And there was no end in sight. I threw quite the fit. But I did it. I climbed the mountain. I got to the top. Just like every other person that did that hike. And so my point being is that, yes, this car complains. Yes, it has its little issues and build quality. I'm not saying it's perfect in any means. But even though it complains, it still gets the job done like every other car. This car has driven me the same distance, the same places, same amount of time, and the same amount of urgency as every other car that I've reviewed today. So that's why the 3800 and GM will always at least have my respect. I'm not saying their cars are perfect, but a poor design doesn't make it to 300,000 miles. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to CJ for letting me take out his Impala here today. I am very, very appreciative that he was able to squeeze me in and squeeze this car into our schedule. I have filmed now 6 of CJ's vehicles. What a wonderful day, and I appreciate him very, very much. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.